begin, there are three planes of movement in the spine. Okay, we have the front and back plane. We call that the sagittal plane. So all forward movement and backward movement occur on that plane. Then we have the frontal or coronal plane, and that all side to side movement occur on that plane. And then we have the transverse plane where all rotational motions occur. So in our shoulders, in our spine, so our head, our thoracic spine, and our low back, and in our hips, we move around along all three planes. So that's what we're going to focus on freeing up today, movement in all three planes. And then in those three planes, there's movements in two directions. So in that sagittal forward and back plane, there's flexion, and then there's extension. And then in the side to side plane or that coronal plane, there's side bending to the left and side bending to the right. And then in the transverse plane, there's rotation to the left and then rotation to the right. So those are the six motions, the six functional motions that we'll be working on today. And I want to start with some dynamic movement because that will kind of loosen up all the joints. It will also show you where you might not be moving well. And then after doing some of this dynamic movement, we'll end with a little bit more of a static type stretch. And then maybe you'll be able to feel the difference of doing some dynamic stretching and mobilization, and then coming in and stretching into spinal extension or stretching into spinal flexion or rotating. Okay. So I'd like to begin in a half kneel position. So if you want to pad your knee with a blanket, that's good. But I really want to begin in this half kneeling position. This is oftentimes how we begin a lot of yoga classes, how we instruct people to do a hip flexor stretch. So this is going to be a great place to start warming up our hips and orienting our pelvis, which is the foundation which our spine moves on. So here in your half kneel position, I want you to come into a pelvic tilt. Tip the pelvis forward and feel how that creates a little extension. And then now tip the pelvis back, little spinal flexion. Hands on the hips is really helpful here. Tip the pelvis forward, tip the pelvis back, forward and back, forward and back. And this is on that flexion extension plane. And I'm starting here because this is the plane that usually we're most familiar with. Or if we feel or notice restrictions, we're like, oh yeah, we notice it here. But it's really important then to build from what we kind of know better out to those areas that we don't move as well so that we can move in all directions. Now let's see if we can start to move into those other directions a little bit. So the next direction is stay right there. It's going to be kind of like a hula action. So it's on that front plane, that side to side. So push that hip bone out to the side and then push the other hip bone out to the side. Yeah. So you're swinging the pelvis and just notice how it feels. It might feel awkward, like I have no idea how to do this, and that's okay. Great. A couple more each way. Really trying to push the side hip bone out. And this motion is coming at the hip and the pelvis, and then the spine kind of follows along. And then pause in the middle. And then now we're going to do a rotational motion of the pelvis. I like to think of this as steering the pelvis. So you steer the left hip into the socket, or the leg that's forward. So my left leg's forward. So I'm steering my left hip into the socket and pulling my right hip forward. So as if it's a steering wheel, steer one side forward, one side back. And you may even feel this in the inner thighs a little bit. And try to make that motion come from the pelvis. So do me a favor. If your hands are on your hips, maybe put them on the ribs so that less of the motion comes from the shoulders and you make it really localized. Because I see a lot of you going like this, but let's try to just move in this pelvic area. So pull the hip back into the socket, and then you'll feel the bottom hip kind of protrude forward a little bit. You may even feel a little stretch through the hip flexor. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Hi, it's Jeannie. I wasn't able to sign in the usual way for some reason.
No problem. Thanks for joining, Jeannie. I'm gonna mute you just so that I can stay on the screen.
Yeah, sorry I'm late.
No problem. Thanks for coming. Okay, so a couple more steering. This is a hard action, and you might even feel the hamstring engage in the back of the left leg. And then release. Great. Just come off your knee for a second. Just sit on your knees. Maybe do a couple pelvic tilts here now, just to reassess. Say like, oh, does it feel different from the left to the right? And this is really helpful to give us some orientation to the spine. You might feel like you're sitting more on the right side, like you're sitting down a little deeper. And then now let's switch sides, right side up or whatever side you didn't do. And we'll start on that frontal, that sagittal plane, that front back plane. That's the easiest for most of us. Tipping the pelvis forward and then tipping the pelvis back. Tipping the pelvis forward, tipping the pelvis back. Feeling the movement of the ball in the socket. So the socket moving over the ball of the hip. Freeing up the hip, the pelvis, and the lumbar spine. That foundational area in all three planes of motion. And as you come into that posterior or backward pelvic tilt, you might even feel coming into that hip flexor stretch a little bit. And I like to start close to the floor because it takes out a lot of those other joints where instability can occur or where we can compensate, like at our ankles and our feet and our knees. And this comes right into that foundation. Great. Now, side to side. So kind of like hula action. Push one hip out and then push the other hip out. And again, maybe bring your hands to the rib cage so that motion is just coming from this core area. Watch your knee too, so that the motion isn't from the knee, it's just the pelvis. Great. Now let's go to that steering action. So as you steer your right hip back, feel the hip suction into the socket as the left hip goes forward a little bit. Don't try to make a big movement. So again, hands on the rib cage and feel it right in the pelvis and in the hips, like the right hip's pulling behind the left hip. And it's almost like you kind of pull and then release, pull and then release. It's kind of a suctioning into center and then a letting go. And this is a really important action for anyone that has hypermobility too, to be able to come in, suction into center. You might even feel the right hamstring. Just the pelvis. Rib cage stays generally still. And then relax. Great. Just sit down onto your heels just a little bit. And now come onto your hands and knees. So some of these things look very similar to maybe what you would think of as some yoga postures, but we're just bringing a little bit different meaning to it. So now again, focus on the hips moving in the sockets and the pelvis and low back moving. So tip the pelvis forward, so arching the spine, and then tuck the tail between the knees, tip the pelvis back. Great. First, start just with the pelvis. Can you isolate and initiate from the pelvis first without doing the full cat and cow? What does it feel like just to try to move the pelvis over your hip bones, over your femurs, the ball of the socket that's anchored, and just see what happens in the low back? And once you feel that motion there, let's start to add on. So now as you arch the back like a chain, feel that arch from the low back, the middle back, the upper back, and then the head so that you start to look forward. And then now from the tailbone, tuck the tailbone, round the low back, round the middle back, round the upper back, let the head hang. Same thing, initiate from the tailbone like a string. Feel it ascend up the spine, and then tuck from the tailbone and round. 2 more times. Can you feel like a wave, that motion roll up the spine? And just notice, where do you feel like that movement comes easily? And then where do you feel like that movement is hard to find? And just use that as an observation. And then pause. Now let's do the opposite. Let's try to initiate that motion from the head, going all the way down towards the tailbone. So first, the chin tucks, the upper back rounds, the middle back hollows, the low back rounds, and the tailbone tips. Then the chin comes up, chest comes up, ribs move forward, belly drops, tailbone lifts. So just see what happens. Now when you start to drive with the head, let your eyes initiate the motion. So look down towards your belly and then round. Look out to the wall in front of you and then arch. And just see what happens, what it feels like in your body. I'm going to take a look here. And I care more about how it feels really than how it looks. Try to keep the arms relaxed so that you're not pushing with the arms, you're driving from the spine. Yeah, really look right towards your navel. Tuck the tail, feel the tailbone drive down toward your knees at the bottom of the round. Yes, and then arch again, stick your tailbone up like you're wagging your tail. Good. So eyes start the motion now, and body follows the eyes. So as we go through this too, you're going to be able to see how different things drive the motion. We started with the pelvis. Now we're using the head. Yeah, and then pause in neutral whenever you finish that round. And I just saw Jennifer kind of like wiggle side to side. So we're actually going to go into that side to side motion next. So same thing. Now, same thing, driving with the eyes and the pelvis. Move yourself to the side so that your hip, you look towards your hip. Then move to the other side, look towards your other hip. So eyes gaze towards your hip bone. Eyes gaze towards your hip bone. Couple more rounds side to side, maybe even pausing on one side or the other. And then pause. Maybe when you finish, just for a moment, sit back to child's pose. Just come into stillness for a second and notice the difference in sensation from when you began. What does it feel like in your hips? What does it feel like in your spine? How about your head, your face, your jaw? Notice your breath. Where are you breathing into easily? And then notice the places where it's difficult to feel your breath. Those are probably some of the places we need to work. And when you're ready, taking your time after the sensations have settled, come back towards hands and knees. So we use the pelvis to initiate the motion. Then we use the eyes to initiate the emotion. Then we use the pelvis and the eyes together. So these are all things that help us move and dictate how we move. Now we're going to use the arm to initiate that motion. I actually want to drive with the elbow here. So I'm going to have you in hands and knees. If you feel like your wrist is uncomfortable, please come to a fist. That's a great option. Or if that's no good either, you can always place your forearm on a stool or a block or something. So you have lots of options. I would recommend staying higher if you come to your forearm, so you just have more mobility. If your forearm's all the way on the floor, you're going to feel a little bit limited for mobility. So now we're going to come into the rotational motion. In this rotation motion, we're going to pull the elbow back, looking towards your elbow. So now eyes and elbow, and then now drive the right hand under and across. Drive the elbow up, eyes follow the elbow, and then drive the hand under and across, reaching out to the other side. Eyes follow the arm. Inhale up, exhale as you twist. Inhale, elbow comes up so that you rotate through the chest, and then exhale and reach. Up, exhale, twist. Inhale, expand. Three more. Two. Last time. And just come back down to hands and knees. We're not going to follow it with a thread the needle. We'll do a rotational pose later on in the class. Now, left arm comes up. Bring the elbow up. Lift through the elbow. Eyes follow your elbow. And then now left hand drives underneath. Eyes follow your left fingertips. So rotate left. Elbow comes up. Look towards your elbow. Exhale. Look right to your left fingertips. Inhale up. Exhale through. Again, on your own breath. Two more times. Last one. Elbow lifts, drive through. Great. Sit back to child's pose one more time. Maybe this time the hands come by your feet. Let your head rest towards the floor. And then now notice where you feel your breath. Maybe you start to feel the breath in different places as we sync our breath towards movement. Noticing how connecting breath to movement change the sensation. And pause here. And then come all the way up. We're gonna come and find that step or that stool. If you joined a few minutes late, I told everyone to be using a chair or a stool for the next series of motions. I'm gonna use this little block here. So in that first series, we went through all the motions of the spine: flexion, extension, side bend, and then rotation. But we but we didn't use the shoulders or the arms or the legs much. We kind of locked it out so that we were just using the spine. And now we're gonna bring those movements up so they feel more functional. This is a really great way to kind of see how these movements are important for walking, for reaching, for bending, for lifting. And this is gonna now transition how those spinal motions, how those hip motions and shoulder motions all integrate to functional movements. So we'll begin in that same lunge position, but now we're up, so all of our joints are involved. Left leg, the same side we began on, is gonna be on your chair. I would recommend, if you feel like you need a little balance, if you have a chair with arms, put the back of the chair on your left side. So just in case if you need a little support, the chair is there. So we're gonna begin first by driving with the pelvis, just as we started. So just drive the hips forward and then come back. And notice where you feel it. Believe it or not, the first place I actually feel it stop is my calf. So Jennifer, give yourself a little more length in your step. Jackie, that looks good. If you feel like you're off balance a little bit, you can make it a little shorter, but make sure it's nice and long. That looks perfect. Yeah. And back. So drive the hips forward, both hips driving forward. Keep the back heel down. And you'll notice how you start to feel things in other places. Like for me, it's the calf right now. And now we're gonna add an arm lift. So the right arm is gonna swing up as you lunge forward and then come back down. Right arm swings up, then come back down. Right arm swings up. Last time. Now let's add the eyes to that. Eyes follow the fingertips. So swing up, look up overhead. This is where balance gets involved. Swing up, look up overhead. Hand drives the motion. Swing, use momentum. If you feel confident, try swinging both arms up overhead now. Reach up overhead. Try to think about keeping your back leg straight and your back heel down so that you're really opening up the whole front right side of the body. Yeah. It's okay if you wobble. Do 2 more times. And then pause. Great. Now, heel on the step. Bend the standing knee a little bit. And now stick your sit bones back like you're bowing. Your chest bone comes towards the wall in front of you first before it comes down. And then let's do that again. So kind of bend the front knee again, and then now come onto your heel, stick your sit bones back. This is kind of an awkward position for a lot of us. So again, driving with the sit bones. Driving with the pelvis. This time it's the sit bones driving the motion. Do 2 more times. And then now let's add the arms. So we just drove with the pelvis, now let's drive with the arms. So now arms come down, swing back behind you. Really think like they just swing down, like gravity pulls them down. They may even start to like come up behind you. Exhale as you fall forward. Last time. And then step down. Good. How's everyone doing? Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, right leg up. First going forward, right foot on the step, both hips drive forward. Try to keep your back heel down, back knee straight so you get that hip flexor lengthening. So just lunge forward a few times. When you feel ready, you can start to swing the arm, driving with the arm, left arm first. Then add the eyes follow the left hand. Whole left side of the body lengthening. And if you'd like, both hands can come in. Pelvis goes forward, arms drive up, eyes look overhead. For 3 more times. 1 breath per motion. Last time. And find stillness. If you need to, you can take your foot down for a minute. Then your heel is going to go onto the step. Now shift your hips back. Push your sit bones to the wall behind you. Keep the standing legs slightly bent. Both knees actually are slightly bent here. When you're ready, arms can swing down. Exhaling as you release your body down and hips go back. Drive with the hands and the hips so that you're really pushing back through your sit bones. Both knees are slightly bent. Try not to hyperextend the legs. Then you're going to get into the kind of the straining of the back a little bit more. And then if you feel comfortable here, maybe even bring your gaze into it. Your gaze would go towards your belly button. That might mean you slow down a little bit. To maintain the balance. Two more. Last time. And come down. Nice work. So we just worked that first plane of motion with the 2 directions, flexion and extension. Now let's move into the side bend movement. You can stay right where you are. I'm just going to change direction so you can see me better. So now let's start with the left foot up again. Go back to the original side. Now the arms and the hips are going to both drive together here. Still in that lunge. And it's not going to be forward and backward motion anymore, but it's going to be side to side. So the arm is going to do the work on the right side for the most part. Take the right elbow into your right hip, kind of lean to the right side. Then you're going to reach up and over. And as you reach over to the left, the right hip will go out to the side. This is where if you have the arm on the chair, you can hold, which might be helpful for balance. So let's give that a try. Breathe in and then reach up and over. Come down to one side and then all the way over to the other. Let the head go too. So if you feel like you're holding on in the neck or throat, you may even slow it down and go lean to the side, feel the stretch through one side, and then up and over, and then let the head hang, even shake it off over there. To one side, to the other. You're in control of the pace. So if you want to get if you feel like where you feel limited is more the rib cage, really reach up and over. You may even take the other hand to those lower ribs. If you feel like it's the neck, really focus on letting the ear hang and then letting the ear hang. If you feel like it's the IT band, it might really be focusing on pushing the hip out. So listen to your body. I can't tell you where you're going to feel it because we're working through the entire side chain of the body. Everybody is going to have different areas of limitation. Let the head go. Head is an extension of the spine. One more time. And then step down. Great work. Now right leg up. And so lean into the right leg just a little bit. It's not fully into the lunge, but you're like a little bit into the lunge so that your knee is over the front ankle. So bring your, yeah, perfect. There you go, Jen. Nice. So left arm now comes into your side. Let your left ear hang heavy towards your left shoulder, and then reach the left arm up and over. Right ear hangs now, left hip pushes out. Start slow. Feel that full motion, and then you get to choose. Do you want to pick it up, or do you want to keep it slow? Where do you feel it most in the body? Or maybe where do you feel like you're not moving? And that's where you focus. Use your breath as a driver as well. Arms drive, breath drives. Couple more. Last one. And come down. Great. Just shake out the legs, shake out the arms. Just stand with soft knees. And just notice the sensation in the body. Where are you feeling it? Are you feeling the breath? Are you feeling lightness? Are you feeling still some restriction somewhere? Just note whatever you're feeling in your body. And ask yourself, what do you need? We have one more plane to go through, and then we'll do one more series that's standing in this way. So set an intention for the next phase to kind of address yourself right where you are, to meet yourself right where you are. So when you're ready, left leg comes back up again. This time we'll really use the eyes with the rotation so that we work on that cervical rotation as part of the spinal rotation. Same thing, just like we did on our hands and knees to prepare, we're gonna drive with the elbow. So the elbow is gonna come back, you're gonna look behind you, then you're gonna lunge forward and reach across. Try to keep the knee driving forward even though you're rotating. So look back, like you're almost like pulling a bow, and then exhale and twist. Eyes follow your hand. Try to look back and look across as far as you can. So you're rotating. Every time you rotate, you get a little bit more rotation until you can almost create a full circle of vision with your neck. Exhale and twist. Hand can hold the back of the chair if it needs a little support. You get to control how fast you go. One breath per motion. It can be really slow and deliberate, or it can be really kind of using momentum. Whatever works for you, whatever feels right in your body at this moment. Do about 3 or 4 more rounds. Nice, really stretch and reach, Margot, from that place between the shoulder blades. Let your head look to the left as far as you can as you twist with your fingers. Yes, good. Switch sides. Right foot up. Left arm comes back, gaze behind. See how far back you can look out the left side of your eyes. And then now as you lunge forward, lean into the right leg and look all the way to the right. Fingertips come to the right and then come back. Just set it up first. Then pick it up. Where is it that you want to focus? Is it through the rib cage? Is it in the hip? Is it in the head? If it's in the head, maybe soften the shoulders. Maybe the shoulders come a little bit lower. Maybe that reaches down towards the corner of the room. It might not, or if you feel like you need to get a little taller, maybe it's up. Play with the direction. Is it up? Is it down? What feels best for you right now in this moment? That's all that we're concerned with. It's going to look different on every single one of us. Two more. Last time. And release. So I'm going to move the chair out of the way because now we're going to bring it all together. This next part is going to move from side to side. So if you think about how we move, we don't go right, right, right. When we walk, we go right, left. So that's what we're going to do in this next one. And these are some of my favorites. This last series is like a little 3-minute series you could just do on its own as a nice spinal warm-up. This standing one on the step 2 you can do totally on its own. I'm showing you a lot of different ways to do the same thing, and they all feel a little different in the body and all have a little bit of a different intention. But this last part is kind of one of my favorite, this last standing part anyway. So what we're gonna do is we're first just gonna do a little twist. And first just shift your weight side to side and let the arms swing like a little kid with empty coat sleeves or like a little kid spinning top. And then as you go, start to build up some momentum. You may even start to tap the kidney area in the back. And then if you think back to where it was that you felt a little stiff, maybe you tap your shoulders or the back of the ribs and pick up the pace. Exhale with each twist. Look with your head. Try to create a full circle, looking all the way behind you with each twist. Keep going. Maybe 5 more at this pace. And then slowly start to slow down, looking through the full range, all the way behind you, looking at the corner of your eyes until that twisting slows and you come to stillness. Great. And just breathe and pause. Let the arms relax. Let the head relax. Let the jaw relax. And then we're going to go into the side plane. So I'm going to separate my feet a little bit. And this is going to be like a pulling action. So I'm going to pull down with one side and reach with the other side. So one side shortening as the other side lengthens. It's going to be really use your breath. 1 breath per motion. If the overhead reaching does not feel right for you, you could also do like an underarm reaching. I'll just show you the option. Keep going if this feels good, but you could also do a pulling up. So you decide, and you get to decide the pace. Again, let the head go with you. If you find that you're straining or holding in the neck, maybe it becomes a little slower. So you focus on letting the ear hang down. Whatever feels right in your body, give it a try. 1 breath per motion. You choose the pace. Pulling and reaching. One side shortens as the other side lengthens. Letting go of the head. Relaxing the jaw for 3 more times each way. Starting to slow it down. 1 more time, really slow, full range of motion, and then relax. Perfect. Again, just reconnecting to center, to stillness. And then here's the best one for last. I'm going to show you from the front and then from the side. This actually I got from Kripalu Yoga. They call it breath of joy. And it's going to be 3 deep inhales and then a ha on the exhale. And it's going to be inhale, reach up, inhale, reach, oops. That's how the other one fell earlier today. Inhale, inhale, inhale. And then it's going to be a ha on the exhale. So we'll do. And then bend the knees as you go. And then. Three more times on your own pace. Bend the knees. Really let the head go on the exhale. One more time. And good. Come on all the way up. And then make your way to the floor. Go ahead and lie on your back. Hug your knees to your chest. Let your breath come back to normal. Keep the knees really hugged and tight. And then let your arms come out like a T, palms facing up, both shoulder blades on the floor. Breathe in here, and as you exhale, let both legs fall over to one side, staying really bent through both hips and knees. Breathing into the belly, and as you exhale, feel a ringing through the spine. Letting the breath come back to normal. Letting go of any efforting. And then start to come back to center. One knee into the chest and the other knee into the chest. And then exhale and twist over to the other side. Knees kind of coming up towards the shoulder. So that really elongates the back body, keeps it a little bit more in flexion and rotation versus extension or compressing the facet joints or all the little joints in the back of the side. It keeps it gapped a little bit more, so we're rotating through the body of the spine. Breathing into the belly as you exhale, feeling a ringing action, ribs going one way, pelvis going the other. And then one knee comes back to center, other leg follows. Now hug your knees into your chest. Bring your forehead towards your knees. Make yourself into a little ball as possible. Take a few breaths there. Really hug yourself as much as you can. Squeeze, 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 and then exhale and relax all the way to the floor. One more big exhale all the way out. Let the entire spine be supported. Allow your body to come back to midline, integrating all the work we did. Soften the eyes, allowing the eyeballs to fall back into the eye socket. Soften the jaw. Allow the whole front of the body to be relaxed. Allow the whole back of the body to be relaxed and supported on the earth, letting go of any muscular effort. Connecting back to the support, the ground support that gives us the foundation in order to push off of to move. So allow yourself to be thankful for the support externally. And then when you're ready, roll towards your side, giving yourself a little hug, being thankful for the internal support of our muscles, our connective tissues, our strength, our breath, and then push down into the floor, rooting into the floor to rise up to sitting. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you feel like your spine can move more freely. Please let me know if you have any questions.